Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Way2Indie.com Hangout. My name is Bernard. I'm a writer on Way2Indie.com, and joining me today are the editor-in-chief and another writer at Way2Indie.com, Dustin Jancic and CJ Prince. Hello, fellas.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good to see you. I haven't seen you guys in a while. Good to talk.
It has been a while.
But for today's hangout on the docket, we're going to open the way we always do with what we've been watching recently, and we're also going to talk about film festivals. Talk about film festival etiquette, whether they kind of curb your enthusiasm for a film, and other things like that. And finally, we're going to talk about, since we're a third of the way through the year, we're going to talk about the best film we've seen so far. We're in April now, so hopefully we have a couple of films that we think are pretty damn good for 2014. I'm pretty tired. That's why my intro sucks. So let's get started with what we've been watching recently. Got my beer here, getting all cozy in California. By the way, I'm in California. Dustin is in South Dakota. And CJ is near Toronto in some town I forget. What's the name of your town?
Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Beautiful Hamilton. I got a place out there. I never go. I never go.
reasons.
But,
The same place that he
but
lives.
I got a place out there. So, this has gone off the rails early. So let's talk about what we've been watching recently. Dustin, I'm going to start with you because you're the head honcho.
Okay. Recently, I have watched a film called Hide Your Smiling Faces. This is an atmospheric indie drama about two siblings that end up questioning their own morality after tragedy strikes. It's an absolutely beautifully shot coming-of-age film from first-time director Daniel Patrick Carbone. And although Hide Your Smiling Faces contained like awe-inspiring cinematography, inspired has to be from Terrence Malick, I found it a little bit lacking in the substance for it to be able to thrive on just the visuals and mood itself. It was beautifully shot, like there's no question about that, but I feel like the director is definitely someone to watch out for in the future, because it does show a lot of promise. Hide Your Smiling Faces got a lot of praise on the festival circuit, and so it's definitely a film that was interesting and very well done for a first-time director. But ultimately, I had some issues with it. But check out my review because it just got published actually on Way Too Indie earlier today, so you can check out like all my thoughts on the film. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say I was one of the people praising the film.
Yeah.
I thought we've talked about this already, Dustin. I agree with you on most points except for the substance thing. I think there was a substance for me that I found, but it's a really super understated film. So
Yeah.
whether people latch on to what was there, I really loved the discussion with the kids about kind of discovering mortality and wrestling with that and coming to terms with it so quickly, because they're hitting I'm not going to spoil anything, but they're hitting the space with mortality in a big way that affects all of them. And
Right.
it spoke to me. I think my boy also, I spoke to a friend that I watched it with who actually hated the film. He didn't like it at all.
Really?
But,
Wow,
yeah,
I
he
didn't know
didn't like
anyone
it at
who didn't
all.
like it. I felt like I was the minority by like liking it but not loving it.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting that someone like actually didn't like it at all, because I didn't even know
I
that
think
existed.
I told you about him. He only watches like mainstream films and stuff, so this is really kind of plotting a very experiential film. So it wasn't his cup of tea, to say the least. But
And this is a huge applause for like indie filmmaking. I mean, this is just, you watch it and you'd be surprised that it's a first time filmmaker. I mean, like I said, like I cited Malick, and I'm not that far off by saying that. I mean, it is very beautifully shot. The cinematographer was amazing on it, and for a first time filmmaker, like it is definitely worth seeking out. But I guess I found a few more issues maybe than the festival circuit, but we'll talk about that later. Maybe how the festival circuit kind of changes things.
A little bit of a
little
tease
bit.
there. A little bit of the
Yeah, Because I
captivating.
saw, I didn't see it at a film festival, so seeing it at home, I think is a big difference. And so
I watched it at home actually. I watched it at
Oh, you
home.
did?
Yeah, I got a
Okay.
screener. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So,
well,
boom.
Show off.
discussion over. All right, CJ, what did you recently see?
Good call.
Okay. So I'll start. I watched 2 films last night. I'll start with the older one, which was Tropical Malady by I will try my damnedest to pronounce his name right. I think it's Apichatpong Weerasethakul. He's a Thai director.
Wow.
Bravo.
Most famously known because he won the Palme d'Or in 2010 for Uncle Boonmi, who can recall his
jeez.
past lives.
That
Which-
movie, come on.
That's a fantastic movie. You see,
Is it?
I've
seen it too.
it won the Palme, so I'm not the only
That
one who
doesn't
thinks
mean
it's a
it's
masterpiece.
great.
It's look, I think that now the director's called Joe for short, so I'm going to call him Joe, because saying that name once already is more than enough for me. But Joe, he's one of my favorite directors working today. This is the 3rd film I've seen by him. I've seen his shorts too, but not as I didn't like it as much as the other 2 I've seen, which is Uncle Boonmi and Syndromes in a Century, which the 2 of them I think are just complete masterpieces. But this one is basically split into 2 halves. The first half is about a soldier and a country boy who kind of have a budding romance, and then halfway through the movie, that story just abruptly stops, and then you get another story about old Thai folklore that involves the same soldier from the first half playing a different character, the same one, they don't say. He's a soldier hunting down a tiger possessed by a spirit of an old shaman in the jungles. And the person playing the ghost is the guy who played his country boy lover in the first half. So these role reversals happen, and I think that Joe is just, what I love about his films is they're completely unpredictable. He has a way of doing kind of, I would say, magical realism, or his films just feel like it has a connection with spirituality. And I mean, I'm not a spiritual person, but when I watch his films, like there's a very vivid atmosphere and mood to it. He's a really good eye for compositions. I love the first half more than the second half by far, but I'd like to watch it again. It's kind of one of those movies you have to mull over, but yeah, no, I liked it. And quickly, as for the second, because I can't say much, I'm preparing for the Hot Docs Film Festival in Toronto at the end of April. So,
Yeah.
yes, I watched a film that's going to premiere there. It premiered at Sundance called The Case Against 8, which is a documentary.
South by Southwest, or it showed at South by Southwest too. I
Okay,
believe.
maybe I have it confused, but yeah, it's a documentary. It's just basically about the legal battle since 2008 to get Proposition 8, basically to declare Proposition 8 unconstitutional in California, and that battle from the California Supreme Court to the federal Supreme Court.
Right.
It's a good documentary. It's pretty standard, but it's well done. I think that they did the best they can do, considering it's a topic that everyone knows the outcome of, so it's not like there's suspense, so they approached it as more of a legal procedural, which I think was the right way to approach it. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to have more on that when we get closer to the festival at the end of April. So just a little preview.
A pretty good amount of buzz at South by Southwest when I was there in the documentary side of things. So yeah, that one definitely sounded familiar to me.
It is, yeah. It's HBO produced it, and I mean, HBO documentaries, they have this thing down to like a formula now. They know how to make really good, effective documentaries.
Yeah.
Last year I saw Valentine Road at Hot Docs, and that was a really good documentary.
Was that HBO based?
Yeah, HBO produced it.
Okay.
This is going to air. It's premiering at festivals right now. Premieres at Hot Docs, but it will be airing on HBO in July.
Okay, cool. What about you, Bernard?
Oh, first, before I say what I've seen recently, what was the name of the first title you mentioned, CJ?
Tropical Malady, which
that's an amazing title.
yeah, you can get it. That's available on DVD and online, and you can get it wherever. It came out in like 2004.
What's a DVD? I don't.
Oh,
I just watch everything online.
the old days.
The old days, yeah. What's that?
DVD is the new vinyl.
Oh God, oh God. Yeah, our kids are gonna think we're idiots because we still have CDs in our closets, compact discs. Anyways, yeah, I watched The Raid 2. My review just went up today. I posted a couple or one interview split into two parts on YouTube this week. Um, Lots of coverage on that one because it was awesome. I really loved it. Uh, Better than the first one, I thought. Which is like
Wow.
I love the first film. I love the first Raid. But I think you get a little. So there, the narrative elements of the second movie are expanded. The first film was just an action movie about a cop infiltrating a building full of mobsters, basically, and kicking all their asses. And it takes place over one day. The second film takes place over a span of years. The narrative elements are expanded so that there's like this big gang war story going on. And although the scenes about the gang war and all these dialogue scenes weren't so engaging to me, just because they're kind of put next to the incredible fight scenes. What the big benefit of those narrative scenes is that they give you room to breathe in between fight scenes. I think the thing about the first film is that it's just kind of nonstop, and not everything registers. Sometimes things move so rapid fire that you can't appreciate the beauty of it all. And in the second film, each fight scene is just, it's so delicious. It's so deliciously brutal and gory and fantastic. And then when you get these dialogue scenes, you just get to sit there and kind of take it in and let the amazing fight scene you just saw kind of sink in and please you to
Yeah.
your martial arts movie loving core. I don't even like martial arts movies that much, but this franchise is really getting me. And there's a third one confirmed, so I'm excited for that one.
So
Wow.
I have a question. What would you compare? What films would you compare the Raid 2 to? Because when I saw the first Raid, which I love that movie, and I really am excited to see the Raid 2. Just because of the completely expanded scope this time. I'm curious because for me, when I first watched the Raid, I got reminded of like 1970s John Carpenter films, like a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he keeps that up because I was wondering because he has so much of a bigger scale on this one. I don't know if that's going to keep up or if he's
No,
emulating other directors.
that vibe isn't present here. I don't know. Maybe you'll find that again, but with the whole gang war kind of crime thing going on, and also Rama, the main character from the first film, he's going undercover into the mob. It kind of feels like The Departed, like with
Okay.
all these kind of like, dialogue scenes where they're cursing at each other and talking about the hierarchy of whatever. And yeah, but so I don't think it feels like a John Carpenter film. No,
No,
other than
yeah,
the
that's
gore.
I was like
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen, but I hope it shines through. I mean, I've heard comparisons to Johnny Toe's films, specifically Drug War, which was one of my favorites last year, so that gets me excited.
Yeah. Gareth Evans actually. I think he told me he loved that movie. Red Bull,
Yeah, it's amazing.
really did. But yeah, that's what I that's what I've been around watching recently. You can find my interviews on YouTube and on the site, of course, and my review went up today, which is in the past if you're watching this later. So it's up there whenever you watch this. Go check out my Raid review. That'll do it for what we've been watching recently. Now let's move on into I'd say our main topic for today, film festivals. I'll let CJ take this away because this was his idea. This is his idea for a topic, so I'm going to let him segue. 'Cause I
Boom.
didn't think of a segue.
Are you letting me segue, or are you just pinning the blame on me if this goes badly?
No, this
Both.
is going to go great. This is
No,
a
I'm
good
joking.
idea. It's
Um,
your idea.
Okay. Well,
Your
okay,
idea
so-
spawned off of my tweet. Apparently.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
That's right.
you made a tweet, which I've had the exact same issues here. And your tweet, which I'm paraphrasing, is
Yes.
if you're talking to someone in line at a film festival screening, and then you're going into the theater, are you supposed to sit beside them now that you've had some sort of a friendly chat with them or not? And I just figured we could just talk about our experience with film festivals now because we all have experience. I've done TIFF and Hot Docs. Dustin, you've done Cannes and South by Southwest. Bernard, you've done the San Francisco Indie Film Fest, the International Film Fest. It seems like you can throw a rock and hit a film fest in San Francisco. They happen like all the time. So I figured, we can all talk about kind of our collective experiences, and maybe for any listeners or viewers who, they don't have the ability to go to these film festivals, get a sense of, what's so great and what sucks about these events. So
Yeah,
if any of you guys want to jump in, well, first off, how about we just let's each give our opinion to that question. Dustin
Yeah, I was gonna
posed.
say and I said my tweets ended with asking for a friend, and I really, that was a joke. Obviously, I'm asking for myself because I've often wondered that, like, I strike up a good conversation at a film festival with someone either in front of me or behind me, and there's this awkward moment when the doors actually then open because you're in line with them for like an hour, sometimes a half hour or whatever, and you're sitting there chatting. You have this long conversation sometimes, and then the door finally opens, and like for the theater, and then there's this mad dash to try to get your favorite spot, which could almost be its own topic. Where's your seat preference? But maybe we won't go there. But I always wondered inside my head, like, should I follow this person into where they're sitting and sit next to them? We've sort of got this like bond, very temporary, but we got this bond, and I would like to know what you guys think. And I'll tell you what my answer is after you guys.
Okay, Bernard, you go first.
Well, if they go in first, like, do you follow them?
Sure, yeah. Either
I
or, really, but
to be real, like when I go to a movie and I talk with someone, even if it's like a close friend who I know, or whoever I strike up a conversation with, I just sit where the fuck I want. Like, I don't care. Like, we're not going to talk during the movie, obviously. So, I'll see him afterward maybe. But usually when we get into the theater, we get into the actual theater, and we, we see the seats. I just go, hey, I'll see you after the movie. Good talking to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna
okay.
side with Bernard slightly on it. I think it kind of depends. Like, really, I just sit wherever I want to sit. I mean, the discussion is you guys are like, I'm in line, they're in line, so I just sit wherever the hell I want. But sometimes they're friendly people, and they might ask or they might sometimes follow me and sit down with me. So if they make that decision, that's fine. But usually I'm not one to
Right.
once the doors open, I'm just gonna go in and go wherever I want because it's just a temporary thing, and it's just two people chatting to kill time in a lineup.
Cool.
So that, yeah. Now, Dustin.
Yeah, that's exactly how I take it. And I thought I was the only, maybe not the only one, but I thought I was maybe in the minority just a little bit because, yeah, I literally just like, we sometimes we have a really great conversation for an hour, and then as soon as the doors open to the theater, I like kind of dick move like, like I'm done with this conversation kind of, and I go up to my seat and I like don't even say like, I mean, maybe say my goodbye, but that's about it. Like I rarely sit next to the person that I've just spoken to for an hour, or whatever. So I thought maybe I was the only one.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yep, I go to my seat.
When I just kind of say like, okay, like Bernard's just like, oh, and like enjoy the movie or whatever, and then, but sometimes if they want to tag along and keep the conversation going, I'm not going to complain if they sit next to me because
What's a good thing to do? Sometimes what I do, if I can tell the person like wants to sit close, is I'll sit like a row behind them or something, so that I'm not sitting next to them, but we can still talk like before the movie starts. But I don't know. I like my own space. If I'm gonna sit next to someone, I don't want them to be chatting to me while I'm in the movies.
Okay. Yeah, because like I always sit on the aisle seat, and that's always really weird for most people. Most people, if they had the whole theater to pick a single spot, they would typically pick middle, like middle of the theater and middle of that row. That's kind of the sweet spot. Usually it's reserved for, when you're at a film festival for the talent or the filmmaker and the guests. But I typically sit on the edges and the aisle. So, you could leave early, but I rarely ever do that. Or for me, it's better note-taking. There's usually light in the aisles. But so that I don't know, that's kind of where I go, so.
No, I don't know. I usually try for kind of a middle thing because I don't like to walk out of movies, but eh.
How about this? This is not really a festival thing, but where's your guys' preferred seat in the movies? I mean, Dustin, yours is the aisle.
Hmm.
DJ.
Mine is like usually I go for center, like kind of off center maybe. Like well, actually, you know what? I've never actually put thought into this.
What?
I usually
You have to. Like, that's like the one thing I think about when I'm in line. I'm like, okay, if there's 10 people in front of me, I have a pretty good shot of where I want to be.
well when I'm at like TIFF for instance, right, and I'm in a lineup that's wrapping around the corner
Sure.
of a street block. I'm like that. But in those cases, I'm like I don't give a shit as long as I can see the
Yeah.
screen. I actually, you know what? When it comes to TIFF, certain venues, I do have ideal seats where I like, okay, I know that this is where I'm going to get the best view. But generally in a movie, I tend not to sit. I tend to sit in the middle in terms of like not the front or the back. I know I have friends who like sit way in the back rows. I sit in the middle rows, usually closer to the edge.
Yeah.
Very boring. Very boring choice. Not even creative. Just like, oh, I picked the reasonable position.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like the aisle for like a couple reasons. Because when I'm at a film festival, I always bring along a notebook and a pen, and it's really difficult to keep track of your lines, and write little notes during a film if it's really really dark. And so, like I mentioned before, usually the aisle will have little lights with sort of guiding you towards the exit or whatever. And so there's just a little bit of light usually at the on the aisle. But that's not the only reason. The other reason is because I hate sitting like next to two people and feeling confined, because I always get screwed out of the armrest. I swear, like I'm always like I don't establish my arm or my elbow space early enough, so they always establish it before me. So I'm like sitting there like, and then I'm trying to write, and so I'm trying to write like this because two people. So I love the aisle seat because I can write, and then if someone's taken that elbow on my right side, I have the aisle on my left. I can easily, in a lot of room, right over here. So there's multiple
so
reasons.
funny.
I've thought this through a very
You're so neurotic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you thought this too. This sounds to me more like someone on a subway car.
I
movie
feel
theater.
slightly like Larry David, and like
Yeah.
I just the tweet was a legitimate question, and like seating etiquette, and I've thought of all of this. Like this is what I think about, so I guess I'm weird, but whatever.
No, I think we all think it through. Maybe not to the amount you have, but I've
You
thought
gotta
about it.
establish the elbow space. Gotta
Yeah,
establish the
you
elbow
have
space.
to.
That's the
And,
rule
like,
number
maybe
one.
that's my problem. What about you, Bernard? What's your favorite place to sit? Since
Oh,
we've
okay,
all-
so it depends. Like, if I'm just at a theater, and I could have my pick, I try to get the center of the screen at eye level.
wow.
Like, I try to get as level with the screen as possible, which is, higher than most people would sit. People usually try to sit in the center. I go a little bit higher, not all the way to the back, but pretty high. And then, yeah, like I like the center, screen at eye level, establish the elbow space. But then also, I go to
You prick.
Yeah, I'm the guy that steals your elbow rest. But a lot of the times I go to is the press screening room, the variety screening room in San Francisco, which is a small theater, and it's full of these like critics who've been doing this for like 30, 40 years sometimes, and I just sit like on the aisle because I don't want to get in anyone's way,
Wow.
Just let them sit wherever they want. I mean, like these people, I look up to them. I haven't been doing this for long at all.
You
Just,
keep your elbows but you don't even establish anything.
no, I go like
Just-
this, fetal position.
Yeah, no elbows. Just keep your elbows in.
I watch on the aisle. I go to the back corner of the room and just
Wow. Okay.
through like this.
So
Don't
we all
mind me.
have we all have different spots then, I guess, that we like
I
to sit
remember-
in.
I remember when I went to TIFF years ago, and I know I'm going to bring this movie up again, but and I saw Leviathan.
Oh geez.
So what I did was, for that one, I was like, okay, I sat in the middle of the second row. So I just
Whoa.
had the whole screen take over my entire I had nothing but the screen in front of me, and I was like, let's fucking do this.
Which is
Because
kind
I
of
just
like
wanted to be overtaken by it.
which is kind of an interesting topic, because I actually was going to bring this up too. Like, does Have you ever, has a seat in a theater ever affected either positively or negatively your thought on the film? I mean, I know it's you wouldn't want to maybe admit that as like a film critic, but just like as a movie watcher, like have you sat in the front and it's just a terrible experience that you couldn't get past that, or like, and maybe in your case, CJ, that for that film you were so immersed because like it filled, like you had no choice but for it to fill your peripheral.
Yeah.
Maybe that like positively affected, I guess, maybe your experience, maybe more so than sitting maybe in the very back row or something. Because I've had that happen before. I have actually got late to a film. This was not at a film festival, just late to a film in general. For Shutter Island, I remember the film, and I had to sit in the very front row and the very last, basically the last spot that you would ever expect a seat in a theater, which is the very front row and the very last seat on the aisle. In this case, the aisle wasn't the best one, because if you're in the front, you better get the middle, because it was a weird angle. It really kind of affected my viewing of the film, like negatively. So I don't know if that has ever happened to you guys.
I notice I avoid seats that are too far to the left or too far to the right, because when I see something on that angle, it takes me longer to get used to it.
Yeah,
it pulls me out
like,
of the movie more.
You focus on that so much, it's hard to get like immersed in the actual film, because you're just like, it's so like it bothers you so much, and like you said, maybe it's just hard to get used to for so long that it almost takes you out of the whole experience. And I remember, has that ever affected you, Bernard?
I've only sat in the front row once. What was the James Bond movie with Halle Berry in it?
The World Is Not Enough?
World Is Not Enough. Yeah, that was, well, I mean, that movie was a piece of shit anyway. So.
Yeah, your first mistake was going to the film.
Yeah, I know, that's totally true. I went to the film, and even if I had gotten my prime seat, that movie was a piece of trash, so I don't know if
maybe the movie was just bad no matter where you sat in the theater.
I don't think any seat could have enhanced that piece of garbage.
Okay.
I think I saw I think I rarely get the front, like Bernard. Like I think the last movie I saw was really up close was Juno.
Whoa.
And I mean that's not the best example really, because it's not really a big visual film. It's just it's more of a dialogue. But still, I don't know. I can't really think of. There are examples where like if I'm off to the side or something, I don't like it. I remember I saw Fish Tank at TIFF years ago, and I remember I had to sit on the edge, and it was my first time going in the theater, and I said never again. Like every time I go to the theater now, I go super early, because I remember it was like it's actually a theater for like concerts, and they change it to screen films, and it's just a big screen on a concert stage.
Oh wow!
So it doesn't really. I mean, they try their best, but it's not ideal. And seeing a film that's shot in the the 4:3 aspect ratio, because Fish Tank
is that really?
Yeah, Fish Tank is shot in the full frame, and
I remember that being a beautiful film to look. I mean,
it's gorgeous. It's insanely gorgeous, and I just remember because I was sitting on the angle, and then you have like this massive screen, and only a little bit of the film is being projected on it. I remember I didn't like that experience.
I had to watch it again. Set up for like a theatrical, like they haven't like worked out all the angles, like in an actual theater with the screen. They try
their best,
right?
I remember actually, they try their best. Like I went to the major theater they use now. I saw The Master in 70mm there, and that was
you had to bust that out.
That was that's a 2,000 seat theater, and it was sold out.
70mm, dang!
No, yeah, it was. I was.
You had me at 70mm.
That's nice. Didn't like the screening being delayed by about an hour and a half, but
it's The Master.
It's worth it.
Oh God, The Master in 70mm, you asshole! That's amazing.
And you're complaining
I'm
about
surprised
an hour
you
wait. I'd wait 3 hours to see that in 70mm.
Like San Francisco has to have a 70mm theater or projector. They have to.
Yeah, I know. We're such a film history town. I just haven't gone.
Yeah.
But let's move on. Let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about what you wanted to talk about, Dustin, which is, does viewing a movie in a film festival environment positively affect your opinion on the film more so than if you were to watch it at just a regular theater screening or at home? So let's start with you, CJ. Have you ever gotten caught by the festival virus and been more kind to a film because you saw it with an enthusiastic audience, for instance?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that this is a thing that happens with many film festivals. I think the major example would be Sundance. I'm speaking generally here just to start because if you look, there are a lot of films that get a ton of buzz at Sundance and they get a huge deal, and they go out in theaters and they flop immediately because it's just that atmosphere. When you're in that festival atmosphere, things that they get such a great reaction, they're not going to react well to like the major public. I would say a film that I remember I definitely was like, if I saw this in a different venue, I probably wouldn't like it as much, was Micmacs, which I saw at TIFF. And that's the Jean-Pierre Jeunet film he directed Amélie. And that was, I saw in a big theater, like 1,000 people, sold out, everyone just laughing their heads off, like just cracking up at like every right moment. The film was just working on like just full cylinder, like working on all cylinders. I mean, and I love that movie, and I honestly feel like it's because I was in that environment that it contributed a lot to why I liked it so much. Drive is another example. I saw Drive, and that was like they had Gosling, Bryan Cranston, Albert Brooks, Refn was there, big theater, like. And that was a really fun experience. I cooled off a little when I saw the film again a few weeks later.
Thank God, I'm not the only one.
It's good. It's just not actually.
Not
What's
great.
funny is Blake,
Yep.
one of our other semi-former writers, saw Drive with me. He saw Drive with me at TIFF, and I was like, "So what'd you think?" And I was like, "It's good," and he's like, "I don't know." He's like, "It's okay."
Oh
And then
man,
now
it's like his favorite film.
It's like one of his favorite films now. Remember, I was like, I tell him, I bring it up one time. I'm like, what happened? I'm like, I saw Drive with you, and you really weren't that big on it, and then you fell in love with it. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, so it'd be good to talk to him because he apparently had the opposite effect. We're seeing at the festival environment, I guess, had him have less of a positive reaction.
Right. Yeah. And I think and I kind of brought this topic up because I've long since thought that, and I think it's been brought up. I mean, I'm not the one who brought it up. It's been brought up before that like festivals have this like certain like bubble to them, and they just generate like so much buzz, and that obviously like a lot of times it works positively for the film, and then you watch it later and then you're like, well, maybe that wasn't as good as when I saw it there because it acts as like a pressure cooker. I mean, it like all the buzz gets generated and everyone's talking in line and like basically when you're at a film festival, sometimes you typically have to wait in line for a long time. Whether that's a half hour, hour, or even more. And so almost always the question, like 9 times out of 10, someone will ask you, well, what was the best thing that you've seen, or what was your favorite film of the festival so far? That's like the question you ask everyone, and everyone asks you. That's super common. So just naturally, films just get thrown out there all the time, and I think that just helps with the phenomenon of sort of creating this like buzz for a film that might not deserve the praise that it's getting. I don't know. It's hard to say that, but that might be the best way to phrase it. And at Cannes, I think I noticed it the most at Cannes last year when I attended, because you're in this foreign place, the French Riviera, which is beautiful, and it's a
I got a place out there. I got a place.
You got a place everywhere.
I just never go. I don't go.
Yeah, of course. And it's just so it's in this foreign land, and it has a really prestigious kind of following, and a lot of things premiere there. And so I noticed a lot there, like Inside Llewyn Davis. That's what everyone talked about while we were there. and then it got a December release date, which is a really good thing typically because the studio's hoping for awards and they kind of know that it probably should. And like it totally backfired for that film, for example, just because a lot of people liked it. I guess just on the award side of things, it kind of flopped a little bit. I think most people still liked it, but I swear, more than Blue is the Warmest Color, more than anything else, Stranger by the Lake, anything else that came out that year, that was definitely what everyone kept talking about and what everyone thought Steven Spielberg was going to pick as the head of the juror to pick for the Palme d'Or. And of course, it didn't win. And I personally didn't like it, and I didn't see it there, though. That was a film that just got so much buzz while I was there, and it was just like, it kind of sort of fell flat, I guess, if you want to say that, afterwards. Still pretty well critically received, but I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thing. But I saw a few films at South by Southwest that sometimes just seeing things with the crowd, I think, is just really interesting. But the fact that Cannes, it's not a public film festival and it's only press, I think it just gets magnified with that festival, just because there is no one off the street. It is all film industry and press only. So I think it just gets magnified there. And people actually boo and heckle as soon as the film ends. And so that's just kind of a tradition there. And so people definitely voice their opinions one way or the other at Cannes. So
You said something interesting. You said it backfired for Inside Llewyn Davis. Do you think that the buzz it generated early, or the buzz it generated at Cannes, affected, like it wouldn't have bombed, or it didn't bomb, but it wouldn't have been? Do you think it negatively affected its release here in the U.S.?
Well, I mean, anytime that a film gets a lot of praise early on, and then, like at a film festival like this, I would say, I would say that there's so much positive, and then you go into it and like, well, that's good, but it's not great. You go into that false pretense, which, like any film critic, that's like, 101, like you don't try to go into a movie, you try to block all of that. But it's really difficult, especially at a film festival. But after a film festival, after everyone said like, oh my gosh, there's so much buzz, and then you see it and you're like, well, that's good, but is it great? I think there's just a little bit of disappointment there, where as if you didn't have that build up, that expectation, I think maybe it would have a better effect, and there wouldn't backfire, if you will, or there wouldn't be such of a disappointment when you saw it at home and you didn't have people in line and this just aura of from the film festival, just all of this positive reaction. So I think so.
So it would have been better for the film to not appear at all, or for it to
no, it's definitely, if you're a film and you can get into Cannes, definitely, or any film festival for that matter, it's definitely good. But I think it's just interesting. I think it's just going into a film with high expectations generally, and if it doesn't necessarily reach that, you're going to feel a little bit more disappointed than if you went into it completely blind and just thought, oh well, this is good. You guys know what I mean. Going to a film with high expectations, you're just going to let yourself down.
I actually, sorry to switch it, but I was going to ask because, you've been to Cannes. I'm an outsider kind of looking in. I always feel like the issue with Cannes is, even though it is like 20-ish films a year in competition, it really is surprising me. One, I feel like a lot of the reaction is much more critical and harsh at Cannes.
Yeah.
And once in a while they have like a film they'll go nuts for that like really, really impacts them. But a lot of the times films get a pretty cool reaction. The biggest example I would say is like Inglourious Bastards, which, they remember at Cannes didn't really get it had its fans, but it wasn't really, like great, and it turned out to be like a fantastic film, and it really like relaunched Tarantino's career. But and then you have other examples where films like Holy Motors get so much love and everything, but then I saw it, I was like, I don't get it. But
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I just feel personally that Cannes just seems like it really is I think maybe because it has that prestige to it, and it's like the king daddy of all the film festivals.
Hmm.
That another thing is films usually drop off in terms of like, there are some damn good films that play there, and because
I know.
they're not a prize winner, or
Hmm.
they play early or whatever, they kind of drop off the face of the earth. I would say a great example, which you and I were just talking about recently, was Young and Beautiful, the
Yeah. Oh
Ozon film,
boy,
which
that's such an
it's
underrated film.
it's a good film, and yet it played early at Cannes. It didn't win any awards. It kind of just
Right.
faded out. It's going to come out a few months next month, I think, from IFC, and
Oh, thank
it's
God.
I
That's
saw it,
so
and
good.
it's I was like, this is actually a really good film. I'm surprised that it didn't really get much buzz at the festival, but
I know. Yeah, you and I were talking about that, and yeah, I would agree. Like, I mean, there's something to be said about coming out early, and then I don't know. That's a foreign film coming and making its release now here, in North America. But I would agree with that. Like, and that's what I was saying. That there's both positive and negative things. I think actually you're right. The focus probably at Cannes is a more critical eye, and like I said, there is booing as soon as the director can be there, and it could be the premiere. And a lot of times at the awards, at the end, when they're handing out the awards, the audience will literally boo, and that's just kind of like a more of a European thing. From what I've been told, I would be offended if it was in North America. I think we would typically be like more in shock than I think in more custom European ways. But yeah, they'll boo a film, and they'll be kind of rude. And I think you're right. I think more often than not, it'll be more critical than in praise of at Cannes.
what
People are
did
typically more harsh.
what film did they boo when you were at Cannes?
I actually didn't experience any, but I didn't go to like any of the premieres, like the black tie like events. I went to like the 8:30 in the morning press screenings at the Grand Luminar, which was awesome. But like people are probably way too tired from getting up that early and partying late that they didn't boo apparently. So I actually didn't experience. I just hear about them and know that and obviously you've heard about that, and it's kind of like a widely publicized thing that does happen there. I guess it happens a lot at the awards at the end when they hand out the awards, like the Palme d'Or and the Actor and Actress Awards. That they, I guess, a lot of the reactions are, I don't know, they boo a lot at
Yeah,
those. So I
I
don't
know
know.
there's a press room at the awards ceremony. There's a press room that's separate. They obviously, the press doesn't get into the main ceremony, but
Hmm.
and
Right.
the press room I hear gets really opinionated, like a
Hmm.
lot of booing. Like I remember when Best Director went out to, I think, Heli, which was the Mexican film. I remember people said there was so much shouting and booing and that kind of stuff. But I'll switch it. Bernard, I want to know for you, because San Francisco, I guess. Although I think this will be changing in the coming years, because I do know that you just got someone from TIFF who's taking over the San
No
Francisco Film
Cowan.
Society. Count,
Noah Cowan, yeah.
I am so goddamn jealous, because Noah Count is an amazing programmer. I
Yeah.
would go see films at TIFF if he programmed them.
Hmm.
Um, and
You do see films at TIFF.
yeah, and then what was it? So I was gonna ask you, because San Francisco it's not home to like a major. The biggest film fest you have, I guess, is the International Film Fest, right?
Yeah.
And you guys, you're not gonna, it's not a TIFF or a
No.
Cannes or a
No.
Sundance or whatever. So, um, I mean, what I want to ask you is, I assume these are more public film fests as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, what's your experience? Because like with that kind of festival and the audience, and I guess these are films. I know you guys have premieres and stuff, but there are films that come down the line from these more major film festivals. And what kind of how those festivals operate, or what the atmosphere is like there.
The atmosphere is great. I mean, San Francisco is such a movie town. We love old school. The new stuff like the Hunger Games and all that. Like we're not so hot on, and like Marvel stuff doesn't usually come through. But like indie art house, that's our shit. And people love the shit here. So international. I just went to the press conference where Noah Cowan was there. Lovely dude. Like really knows his stuff. Although he's only been here a month, literally just touched down a month ago. And the festival is full of a lot of independent indie film standouts. The focus is on indie film and world cinema, so it's cool. I mean, I really like it, and the crowds are respectful. Everyone knows their stuff. It's kind of incredible. Like you can talk to anybody, and they all they watch is like art house, and they know every French director and all that shit. So it's a cool atmosphere. It's a cool atmosphere because everyone's into the same thing. We don't really get people who are kind of like disgusted that the film's too artsy fartsy or something. Like everyone loves the stuff. It's fun.
I remember one story. I was at TIFF a few years ago, and because TIFF is so massive, you got like 300 plus films playing, and it's just so big, and it's one of the biggest film festivals in the world because it's public. You have people going there, and they're just gonna watch. There are a lot of people who just go because they're like, oh, it's a big film fest and celebrities, and they watch whatever, not realizing what they're watching. So one time I was in line, and there was a woman who was visiting from California just for business, and she was like, oh, I'm gonna go to a film at TIFF, and she picked a film randomly, which was from the wavelength section. Now the wavelength section is avant-garde films. So the film she watched, when she started talking to me, and I kind of smiled, but in my head I'm like, oh my god, like this is so bad. It was based off some obscure German or French novel from decades ago. It was about 8 16mm reels that would play in random order at every screening, and it was just landscape shots with narration. It's not a bad film. I've seen it. It's not bad. But this woman who looks like she walked off the set of The Real Housewives of like Orange County or whatever, is talking to me about this really like weird movie she watched and all this stuff. And I know the movie. I know there are critics who like adore it and stuff. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh my god, like you poor thing. I was just I wanted to say something. I was just like, no, I'm just gonna enjoy this.
You had the same reaction to see the crowd at Spring Breakers, I believe.
With me?
Yeah, well, you were standing in line and you were like, wow, these people do not know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, I mean,
they
there were
saw
a couple...
the stars of the film and they're like, oh my god. And then you're like, wait a minute, the director. And I just remember a tweet. You're like, these people have no idea what they're into.
Yeah, there were definitely a couple. Yeah, okay. I remember I was in the line, and to one side of me were a bunch of like hipsters, literally just pulling out a joint and just smoking pot in the line. And then the other side of me were like 16-year-old girls who were there for Selena Gomez and Vanessa Hudgens. And I'm sitting there, and I mean, part of me's like these poor girls to my one side, but the other part of me's like Harmony Korine is just, he's so fucking fantastic because he's made a movie that can unite these two groups to go see.
And then you're like the oddball weirdo in the middle of this group.
I was just standing still, quietly on my phone, listening to music or whatever.
They're probably like, who's this weirdo in front of us? Like, who's just an average-looking dude and probably doesn't know who Justin Bieber is, other than, I guess, you're...
Oh, they don't know. I know who Justin Bieber
is.
He
knows Justin Bieber.
We're in Canada. I'm in Canada. Everyone knows Justin Bieber.
Sure. But you know what I mean? Like, they're probably like, God.
Yeah, no, that was a weird experience. There are definitely people at TIFF who they just go because it's like, oh, let's just go see a movie, and then, because the fest is like so broad, you can pick. So, like, they just pick whatever, and sometimes that backfires.
Right. So, like, I one of the questions I would have maybe is, and maybe one of the reasons why I think people might view films more positively in a crowd at a festival, would be maybe because the director's there. Do they feel some sort of, and then they hear the Q&A afterwards. So they, not only that, they feel like they need to respect, this guy's work, and sometimes the whole crew is there, and you feel more obligated maybe to applaud or to sort of, I don't know, give the people the recognition. But also you'll also hear their reasoning behind the film, and sort of like, I think, and people really love that. People love behind the scenes and let them know why things are shot a certain way, and people eat that up. Like that's like DVD extras type stuff. And I'm wondering if that maybe skews people's opinion on films, in a positive way. And I think maybe that's why directors love to go there and to film festivals and be at their premieres. And I just want to know what you guys think maybe about that. If that's maybe a reason why people
Well, I think,
like it.
yeah, like I interact with some directors like before and after I see their films and stuff, and yeah, sometimes it can, skew. I don't like that word. I mean,
Yeah, it's not
it
maybe
can
the best
it
word,
can
but
influence or color
right.
your perception of a film. Now, I think the real question is that a valid perspective? Like, should you not take that perspective into account at all? Should you just take your own life experiences and not take the director's inspiration or influences into account?
That's
Or
a good question. That's a great
I
question.
think I think speaking to a director and finding out what the inspiration was behind whatever, I don't think I think that's a valid life experience that you can add to your other life experiences you take into a film. I don't think there's any difference there. I think it's the same as if discussing it with somebody like one of your friends
Hmm.
perhaps shows you a new angle on the film that you go, hey, oh, this is clicking for me now. Now I get it. That's valid too. I think conversations with other people are totally cool. And I think there are definitely films where I treasure them now because of conversations I've had with people. And I think directors, they're people and they're informed about the film, so why not?
What do you think about that, CJ?
About just
Should
the
like,
director.
yeah, could that influence you positively or have more bias towards liking a film because you hear afterwards why they made it a certain way, maybe, or maybe they're trying to cover why something didn't work, and they kind of maybe give not an excuse. I'm not trying to like, like they give their reason why they did some, their reasoning behind the film,
Yeah,
the why they shot a certain way, why they weren't able to do this, maybe.
insight. They give insight.
They give some
Yeah.
insight, yeah. And what do you? I don't know. Does that ever affect you? And do you feel like that
I
influences
think
you more than anything?
for me
I don't know.
personally, when I see a film, I mean, I'm gonna like it or not, and that information, it will give me a better understanding,
Right,
maybe it will give me more
right.
appreciation, but I can't really
Or
think of a
less.
I can't think of a situation where that type of information really swayed my opinion on a film away from what I originally felt.
Hmm.
Maybe over time, but definitely it wasn't like I watched a film and liked or hated it, and then after hearing the director or someone in the crew speak, it like vastly changed. Like, oh well, now I changed my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example. Maybe I don't
Like
know
I
if any of
wouldn't, I
you.
wouldn't think it would do that. Like if you were like you hated it, and I don't think you would like all of a sudden you hear the
Love it.
the, the director and you would
Oh
love
no,
it.
yeah,
But I mean, if you're on the fence about it, you're like, well, man, I'm not sure about this. And then like the director was like, he explained it and like all of the time you put into it and all this other stuff, and then you're like, well, yeah, like okay, well that kind of makes sense or whatever. And like I think it would be like a less of a jump there. Like I think if you were on the fence, maybe I think it
yeah,
might persuade you to go on the other
but
side maybe more than if you hated the film. I wouldn't expect you to like love it just because
but
you.
yeah, but I mean, but I also think that this information that's being given to, us, especially if we're in press,
Hmm.
or just festival audiences, period. That information is not going to be taken by average viewers of the film, and so for me, it's it can help, but I don't know. I guess I feel like it's a bit. It will definitely make an impact, but I still feel like I shouldn't. Like this information, like I guess Bernard said, it's good to have, but at the same time, I don't like it influencing my opinion too much because I feel like it's information that not people aren't gonna know. Because when a director or a filmmaker puts their film out there, it's for anyone to take as however they want.
But
Yeah,
that's not
well,
really what Bernard was saying. I don't think. I
yeah.
think he was
No,
saying kind of different. That's why, and I kind of figured you might feel differently about that because I feel like Bernard's saying that actually that helps him with his own life experiences to hear the other experiences, and that
Yeah,
can
and it
really
could go
help.
either way
yeah,
too. It could affect, like, for example, I'll give two examples.
Okay.
First, the first time I watched Mulholland Drive, the David Lynch movie, I mean, I thought it was a piece of shit. How old was I? I was like a teenager. I thought it was a piece of shit. It's so impenetrable. It doesn't make sense. And then I talked to people about it, fans of the film, and they helped me unlock, some of the real beauties of that movie, and it's my favorite movie now. Like it's my favorite, and I hated it at first. So that's the way it can help you positively. And if I wrote a review of it, I would write a positive review despite the fact that I hated it at first.
Sure.
Now, on the other hand, I reviewed Jobs last year, the Steve Jobs, biopic.
Garbage.
I watched the movie.
Garbage.
Yeah, I watched the movie. I thought it was garbage. Then I talked to the director. He was awesome. He was a lovely dude. He kind of justified some of the things in the movie that I thought were problematic, and he gave me insight. I was like, oh, okay. I understand why you made that decision. Still garbage. Still garbage. I gave it a better review because, I took his information, I processed it, which is good that he gave me that information. But still, it didn't affect it affected my opinion, but it ended up that I still thought it was a piece of shit.
Okay. I agree with everything you just said, Bernard. But that's the difference, because when you talk about Mulholland Drive, you're actually discussing the film with friends and stuff. That's different for me, because we're talking about a situation where you're hearing about, like, say with Jobs, the director of Jobs, he's telling you about the shooting the film and his intentions and all that through directing.
Right. It is a little bit different, but like I understand your point. Yeah, CJ is right though. Like you're talking with friends and stuff versus really where we got on track, which is like at a film festival, like at a Q&A, talking or listening to the director speak about.
I have plenty of examples of talking to directors and them positively affecting my view on a film for sure. Yeah, right. I have plenty of those.
Yeah, I can't say I come away with like a very, if I'm, whatever my opinion on the film is, it may, I may just have an appreciation for the film more, but it doesn't really. I know what you're talking about. Like if I'm on the fence about something, that may change it slightly, but for the most part, I tend to be pretty consistent on my opinions. I noticed that over long periods of time, my opinions may change more drastically.
Yeah,
but
I think that's common.
A good example is I saw this movie called October November at TIFF last year, which is by the director of Revanche, which is on the Criterion Collection, which is a fantastic movie. That's why I went to see it. It was his first movie since then. I really didn't care for the movie. It was kind of boring. He came out, and I was actually I actually saw it with Nick, our new writer on the site.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was one of the first. I think that was the first film we saw together at TIFF. But he actually liked the film a lot more after the Q&A, when the director got to spiel and went into detail about it. Yeah. I still felt pretty lukewarm on the film, but I had a better appreciation of what he was going for, and it's like, you know what? Even though I have a better understanding of what you're doing, but I still don't think that what you did would impacted me in the way you probably hoped it did. So I just get a better understanding or appreciation.
That's a really good, that's really
I've never been swayed, as I've talked to a lot of directors now. Well, not a lot for me. I've been doing this for like 2 days, but I've talked to some filmmakers, and it's never, the conversations with them, although they're informative, they've never swayed me so much to where I really didn't like a film, and then I talk to them and suddenly I love your film. Right. It's never happened. It's typically
I was being exaggerated there.
Yeah, sometimes I'll kind of like a film, and then I'll talk to them and go, oh, okay, I see what you were going for there. I still don't like it quite so much, but I understand it better, and I think it's okay to. I don't think it's corrupting anything to include, if for example, if I was confused about a scene. When I first watched it, and I talked to a director, and he clears things up for me, and I go, now that it kind of affects me more, I'm not gonna write about my first experience, as if my conversation never happened. I think that's disingenuous.
Yeah, and I'll just end it on this thought, and because I kind of I definitely see where you're coming from, Bernard and CJ, both of you. And I find myself, and it's just something I thought of when I've been to film festivals and I go to a lot of the screenings and the Q&A is there. I feel like a lot of people get a lot out of it, and I wonder. My thought is this. My thought is that people aren't going to like the film any less. If anything, it's going to help them. People aren't going to like think a movie is great and then listen to the Q&A and then be like, wow, I thought this movie was garbage. And I think if anything, it helps the people who are on the fence to maybe say, oh, okay, actually, yeah, he's got a good point there, and I kind of think it's a little bit better now. And I don't think it's going to persuade people who didn't like it at all. I don't think they're going to all of a sudden like it.
Yeah,
I don't think it's ever a negative thing. I would be very surprised if people really like the film, and then all of a sudden after the Q&A, be like, oh, well, now I don't really like it as much. I think it only helps, and then that's all I wanted to maybe get out of it, and that's just my opinion. But.
Yeah, I think you're generally like 99% of the time right. I did have one experience though where I did hear a Q&A with the director that I won't name where I heard this Q&A and it was oh gosh, how can I say this without giving it? It's not a famous film at all, but it was a film that was paying homage to a very famous Japanese director. So it was like he was doing a sequel to one of this amazing Japanese director's films. And I watched the film and I thought, oh, that was all right. That was okay. Yeah. I had a lot of problems with it or whatever. And then he talked and he said that he was trying to like, kind of continue this director's legacy or something. And like all these shots that I thought were like serviceable, he told me that he was trying to emulate the style of this director. Wow. And it did kind of leave a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah, I was
you can screw it up then.
Yeah, I was like, oh god, that's disrespectful.
I was gonna say, Dustin, like you're right about how it's a better appreciation, but oh boy, I know stories of Q&As where you listen to Q&A and you're like, wow, this guy just fell into a good movie.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess I haven't experienced that too much. That's funny.
That was so good, CJ. That was perfect. Hey guys, let's wrap this up. I think we've been going a little long on this festival thing. Fascinating stuff about film festivals, etiquette, our favorite seats, whether the film festival atmosphere can get to your opinion of a film and corrupt it or help it. Let's move on, though. We could talk about that for days. Let's move on into, now that we're in April, we're a third of the way through the year. We've seen a few films here, all three of us. Let's talk about the best one we've seen yet. The best one so far in 2014 that we've seen so far. Let's start with CJ here. What's the best film you've seen so far in 2014?
Okay. Well, my favorite films of the year I actually saw in 2013 at festivals. They just haven't come out yet. I'll just give a quick reference to those because I'll talk about what I've seen this year. Those two would be, Dustin will disagree, but Only Lovers Left Alive, the Jim Jarmusch film, which is going to be out in a few weeks, which I love.
I just saw it.
What did you think? Can you say? Okay.
Yes! I'm not the only one! Oh my god!
I'll leave it at that. The other film is Tsai-Ming Liang's Stray Dogs, which is just total masterpiece. Blew me away when I saw it.
Really? That's playing at International. I was wondering if I
would
say
it. It's going to be a tough watch, but you know what? I know you like more minimalist films. You love Jean Dielman. You have a great appreciation for it. I think you would like Tsai-Ming Liang's films because he's in the same vein. Oh. There are shots in that film, stationary, that they go on for 15-20 minutes.
Wow.
And you have to be in the right mindset. That's what I would say. He gets you in that mindset. Like he brings you into his very meditative point of view and stuff. But I don't want to get too much of that. The best film that I've seen in 2014, that is coming out in 2014. Funnily enough, played in 2013 at festivals, but I saw it this year. Anyways, I saw it recently. It's called A Spell to Ward Off the Darkness. I'm going to have a review coming up in the future. It's a film that's split into 3 acts. It follows a man who doesn't say a word in the film, I think. He's at the first act, he's at a commune in Estonia. just hanging out with some people. They kind of are just like a bunch of hippie types who kind of do a lot of philosophical discussions. Then the film just abruptly cuts and he leaves. I guess he leaves the commune. They just kind of cut, and now he's living in solitude in Finland in the forest. And that's the second act of the film. And then the film abruptly cuts again. And then the third act, he's a member of a death metal band in Norway, playing at an underground club. It sounds very weird, but the directors, Ben Rivers and Ben Russell, they have such it's it's such perfect, their cinematic form, their everything is amazing. By the time the third act kicks in, which is done in over 30 minutes in 3 Steadicam takes, and
Wow.
it's amazing just watching the cinematic, the level they're playing on, the themes, the ideas it brings up. It's a very existential film. It's about this guy, to me, I mean, this is my own interpretation, it's about a guy who's trying to find his own form of utopia, and he's just picking up and dropping these types of existence. He goes for a communal existence, then he goes for a solitude existence, and then he just kind of goes for this all noise and fury existence in the metal band. I think it's I don't know, I really resonated with themes and what it was going on about. It really resonated with me. I really enjoyed it. I'll leave it at that. My review will be up in a week or two, I hope. I'll probably go into more detail.
I already wrote a review for that one.
A Spell to Ward Off the Darkness?
Yeah,
That's not true.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, I was gonna
Like,
say
that would not happen.
I was
know
like, there's
that.
no way.
There's no
Inside
way.
joke, people. Inside joke.
Inside,
It's
yeah.
not
Yeah,
funny
that's
to
true.
anyone. Yeah.
Okay, who's
How about I'll go. I'll go in the. I'll sandwich right in between you two lovely gentlemen. We'll have a
Wow.
little Bernard sandwich here.
Alright.
Best film I've seen so far this year, and I don't know. I've seen quite a few. So right now, the one that sticks out is Under the Skin by Jonathan Glazer.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Scarlett Johansson. Have you seen this, CJ?
Yeah, I saw it at TIFF. I saw it at the premiere. Scarlett Johansson and John Glazer were there, and
Oh, yeah?
yeah, and I need to see it again because you know what?
That's all right. That's all right. Let's
I
go.
was like,
Let's go, baby.
No, it wasn't. Here's the thing, the line I tell everyone is this: I appreciated it much more than I enjoyed it. It has some amazing sequences. It has, like, just Glazer just knows what the hell he's doing. It's the most Kubrickian film I've seen since Kubrick died.
Wow.
By far.
Wow.
I'm not saying, but the thing is, I didn't really connect to it. I wasn't into it. But it's an undeniably
Yeah.
cinematic film. I couldn't really, I'm not on the same level of, like, love that everyone's on, but yeah, you go on about it because I mean,
Yeah,
you've just
like,
seen it recently.
For the fine folks at home, Under the Skin is this really incredibly cinematic film by Jonathan Glazer. He used to be a music video director, starring Scarlett Johansson as this woman in Glasgow, picking up men and killing them, and kind of going on this spree of abducting impressionable men in her truck. I think it's a gorgeous, gorgeous movie. Otherworldly, I'll say. Otherworldly film, and not just in maybe some themes that run through the film, but in the craft, in the way it's crafted. It's the way it's edited. The music is incredible, but it all just feels so ethereal and otherworldly and not of this time. It's so strange in the best way. Some of the sequences here, my jaw was literally wide open as I was watching in the theater. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and there are actually some of the early scenes of Scarlett Johansson, who's incredible here. Although she has a lot of dialogue in the film, it feels like kind of a silent role. A lot of her emoting is through her body and her face. There's some early scenes of her abducting men where they actually use real people, and the men don't actually know they're being filmed. So it's actually just Scarlett Johansson hitting on or trying to abduct these men, these real people, and they're filming it, and they put it in the movie. It's really fascinating film. Yeah, like you said, totally cinematic, gorgeous. Sound is great. Editing is out of this world, and I think it's the best film I've seen so far this year. Yeah, Kubrickian.
I'm gonna say real quick. Even though I think my issues stem with the second half when it kind of decides to start having a story, and but anyways,
Mm.
for me, I would say the sequence where you actually get the reveal of what happens to these men,
Ooh.
which I don't want to go into detail, but
Ooh, so good. So
so
good.
I like that scene, like that noise, like everything that happened in that scene, is just so chilling, like bone
Yeah.
chillingly eerie. I'll just leave it at that. That scene really, like, out of everything at TIFF, that's probably the most memorable thing for me.
Unforgettable. Unforgettable. Have you seen La Talente?
Which one?
Jean Vigo, La Talente?
No, I have not.
It's like a 20s silent film, but it's famous for the shot of the main actress. Oh God, I forget her name, but she's floating in the water, and there's a light in the water, and she looks like this angel, kind of just floating there in this white. I think she's wearing a white dress, and it reminded me of that. The scene you're
Oh
referencing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No.
it reminded me of that a lot. It was just incredible,
Yeah,
incredible.
that and the gold. What was it? Remember when it was like a gold filter and they had all those shots overlaying each other? That's amazing. Yeah. But anyways, I would go. We could have a whole other episode dedicated to discussing that.
Some
So
of the shots in there are just I've never seen anything like them before.
yeah. All
Never
right,
seen anything like them.
Dustin, your turn.
Oh boy, I had
Complete
nothing
sandwich.
Yeah.
Divergent.
Boy.
Divergent's your favorite so
Yeah,
far, right?
Divergent.
Yes, so
I knew
far,
it.
Divergent is my favorite film of the year. No,
I knew
I
it.
don't think I'll see that film. To be quite
No,
frank.
it's a must-watch.
No, it's not.
I
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Don't even.
All right. So I'll just say this: my favorite film of 2014 starts out like this.
Ooh.
It begins on a very quiet note, only hearing the faint raindrops as a camera slowly moves across an alley. Yep, Bernard knows where I'm going, or CJ knows where I'm going with this.
Nymphomaniac.
And then all of a sudden, loud heavy metal music comes blaring in, and we see a body laying motionless on the ground. An amazing opening that you would only get from Lars Van Trier in a Nymphomaniac.
Lars Van Trier.
CJ's right. What's that?
Lars Van Trier.
It's Vaughn.
Von Trier. Yes. Lars Von Trier from Nymphomaniac. And this is actually my favorite film of his so
Yeah.
far.
All right.
And people will disagree with that with, Antichrist and Melancholia. But Nymphomaniac it was amazing for me. As you'd expect from Von Trier, Nymphomaniac pushes the envelope, as he always does with all of his films. But surprisingly, having said that, it's actually, I think, his most accessible film to date.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree.
And so he's able to take this abundant amount of on-screen nudity and sex and combine it with philosophical connections between sex and the art of fly fishing. And as weird, maybe pretentious, and uncanny as that sounds, he's able to do it, and no one else but him could probably get away with doing it. But considering the title of the film and the amount of hype surrounding all the nudity and everything that's involved, and the crazy amount of marketing being put into the film with the 14 posters of the characters having an orgasm.
Was that
on
what
all
that
these
was?
posters? Yeah. Is that what that was?
I thought
were
they
taking
stepped
a
on a
shit.
nail.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Either or. I mean, that's maybe what he said. Just pretend they're stepping on a nail. Despite all of that, it's actually it's incredibly and remarkably smart, and that's what I liked about it. It's not just a snuff film or a porn film or an excuse to show sex on screen or an excuse for Lars von Trier to do some sort of weird off the wall pushing the envelope to push the envelope, weird to be weird type of thing. It's not all about the sex. Stacey Martin is actually incredibly good, I felt, in part one. The second part, I've seen both parts. They split into two. And the second part, I don't feel like it was quite as good with Charlotte Gainsbourg taking over as the lead. Stacey Martin is shown as the younger Charlotte Gainsbourg. and as it goes on, part two, she kind of stops, and it shows it's a flashback, and then the second part is just her. And I don't think she was quite as good, and I don't think the second part is quite as great, but it's a great series altogether because the first one is that good. So that's my favorite film I've seen this year.
Yeah, I'll say quick. I saw Nymphomaniac too, and as much as I adore Antichrist and Melancholia, I did have a bit of a cool reaction to it. It took me a bit of time to think on it, but definitely. I mean, like with Under the Skin, we can have a whole discussion about Nymphomaniac, and
We should, baby. Let's do them.
but no, I think that I agree with you. It's definitely Lars von Trier's most successful film to date, and I also think it might be his most sensitive film to date because it's very much about him, and as much as it's about a nymphomaniac who's owning, even though she has self-hatred, she's still kind of owning her actions and all that. I think I called the movie the provocateur's burden at first because it's like Joe is very much Lars von Trier, and Lars is kind of saying like, oh, it's so hard to be trolling people all the time.
That's true. I mean, I can see that.
But no, I mean, yeah, like, so it's very much about him, and a lot of it's based on his reaction to the whole controversy that happened at Cannes when he premiered Melancholia and made those comments that got ridiculously overblown. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love Lars von Trier. He's one of my favorite directors, but sometimes I got to take the bad with the good, So
Well, it's funny because like I respected him more than I liked him previously. Like I saw some good things, in Antichrist and Melancholia, but they weren't necessarily my favorite films. So he's a filmmaker that I really respected, but didn't necessarily like. And so I guess I was kind of the opposite. This was actually my favorite film from a respected filmmaker, and it was just interesting that for you it was your least favorite. So maybe.
Oh no, it's not my least favorite. It's not my least favorite at all.
Not from him.
No, it's not my least favorite from him.
Oh,
I just had a cooler reaction. I think that Antichrist and Melancholia are just masterpieces to me, and Nymphomaniac's on a smaller level than that. It's not my least favorite at all, but it's just a more cool reaction, and I was definitely looking forward to it. So that's all. Yeah. But it's still a good film. But I will say though that there's a point. I don't know. Have you seen Antichrist, Dustin?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure you noticed when he gave a callback to Antichrist within his own movie.
Right.
And I will admit, like, I when that happened, I laughed really hard. I was in the theater, I laughed really hard, and I just said, Lars, you fucker.
It's funny that you say that because there's actually a fair amount of, like, for how serious and kind of, like, philosophical and smart it is, there's actually, like, a bit of, like, underlying, like, comedy to it. I mean, a little bit, in a very small way.
I think it's really funny. Volume one is very funny. Volume
more so
two,
than
not
two,
much,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Volume 2 is very dramatic in comparison, but Volume 1 is really funny. The music cues are really funny. I won't spoil them, but yeah, I was definitely laughing a lot, and the fact that he gets so cheeky and he like he throws stuff in just to be a dick, and that's just who he is, and that's why I love him too.
Right, exactly.
Now, I haven't seen Nymphomaniac yet. I plan to. I've just been so busy, but we have a writer. For all you cute kids at home watching this on YouTube, you thousands of people who are, surely going to be watching this masterpiece of a hangout. We have a writer on the site named Ananda Dillon, and she refuses to watch Nymphomaniac. And Dustin, head honcho, I think we should have you try to convince her to give it a shot.
To what?
Watch Nymphomaniac. I haven't even seen it.
Won't watch it.
I know she won't watch it. We gotta get her to watch it. I want to get her.
I guess I missed that. I don't know
why.
why she. Oh, she said that. Yeah, in the last one she wouldn't.
I want
see
to get her to watch it, and I want her to live cast it so that we can see.
Wait, why won't she watch it? Did I miss that? I don't understand.
Oh, you don't know about this? You don't know about this?
No.
Oh, she doesn't want to watch Nymphomaniac. She dreads even getting anywhere close to it. Terrified.
For the hype, or because she's seen his other films, or
matter. I think the subject matter.
Oh, okay.
And maybe Von Trier. I'm not sure.
And that's what I kind of wanted to mention, because of like the title and because of like the connotation and sort of like the subject matter surrounding it. Like, like we just said, like it's surprisingly like funny and cheeky, and it's surprisingly smart. It's not just like what you might think it would be, and like just like sex to show sex or nudity to show nudity, and just it's not all about the sex.
The sex is graphic, but it's not.
It is.
It's not over the top. It's not. I was expecting more sex and nudity and stuff.
If you watch
than what
a
was
decent
there.
amount of like foreign films, foreign French films or whatever, like it's not that much more than like you would see in like a foreign type setting. But the us Americans.
Stranger by the Lake. Hello.
Yeah, that's... I saw Stranger by the Lake after I saw. I think that was the next film I saw. Oddly enough, I don't know why, but that was like the next film I saw. I'm like, oh my god, why aren't more? Like, and see, no one cares about that. And Young and the Beautiful, the same thing. Like Young and the Beautiful probably has close to the same amount, not quite, but I mean, like it's not that far off. And no one's talking about Young and the Beautiful being this, film that shows off a lot
probably
of nudity.
It's not called Nymphomaniac.
That girl in Young.
True. It's not about a 17-year-old girl. Well, I guess
that girl in Young and Beautiful is so goddamn gorgeous.
And the title doesn't lie.
Like I was watching it, I was like, oh my god, like this girl is gonna have a career. Like that's gonna be a breakthrough role. I'm just gonna mention that.
Yeah, she was great, but I also thought Stacey Martin was great. I mean,
I disagree. I think Stacey Martin was pretty bland to me. That's granted part of the role, but I don't know. It didn't make much of an impact.
So
I thought Charlotte Gainsbourg was great.
Wow, I felt very different.
And we can agree Shia LaBeouf was a piece of shit in the movie. He sucked. Well, that accent was dog shit.
He's not famous anymore, so.
Yeah, that's right. He's not. Thank God, he's not famous anymore.
I heard.
Yeah.
And he's sorry.
Well, hey guys, I just moved into my new apartment, which is why I don't have a light in this room, and which is why it looks like I'm in a scary movie right now because I'm running out of light.
I didn't want to tell you that someone's behind you the whole time, but watch out.
But I think this is a good place to call it quits here. We've had a great time. We've had an enlightening conversation, serious conversation about films, and nymphomaniacs and genitalia. But we have to cut it short and say goodbye. Visit us over on waytooindie.com. We've got a lot of cool stuff over there, interviews. Tell your friends about us. Hit like on the YouTube video below if you're watching this on YouTube. Dustin, where can we find you on Twitters and anywhere else? Where can we find your work?
Just find me on Twitter, djansick, Jansick. On Twitter.
CJ, where can we find you? Oh, what's your Twitter handle?
Oh, jeez, every time.
Here we go. Yeah, my Twitter handle is @Ubudess. That's OOOBOODESS.
I don't know why that's so
good
funny.
Luck, because it makes no sense. That's why it's funny.
When I think of a good one, I'll change it.
How about CJ and your last name?
It's taken. It's taken.
Oh no!
Okay.
Oh no! Let's find him.
All taken.
And Bernard, where can we find you?
What is mine? I don't know what mine is.
I think it's at BJ Boo.
BJ_Boo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or if you search for Bernard Boo, I think your name, I think it would pop up too. So.
Or Bernard Boo, and a lot of the films we mentioned today on the Hangout we have stuff written up about them on the site. Search for all that stuff. Got a lot of raid stuff up right now, cool stuff, and of course the reviews of some of the films we mentioned. Looking forward to the Young and Beautiful review, whichever one of you does that. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Dustin and CJ, for joining me. I'm going to go take a nap.
All right. We'll see you guys later.